All right, today we're going to test and review the Televes V-Zenit MIX outdoor TV antenna. This is called a mix antenna because it is designed for receiving high VHF and UHF TV channels. So it covers RF channels 7 to 36, which is where most over-the-air TV channels are anyways today. But you might notice on the box it says B3 and UHF. B3 is another name for the high VHF band, and because this antenna is made in Europe, it is labeled as a B3 and UHF antenna, which actually means high VHF and UHF antenna. It's just that in Europe they call the high VHF band B3 or band 3. There is a fully shielded connection box, meaning that the antenna is fully grounded from the coax cable all the way through the mast when it is installed correctly. The physical design of this antenna also makes it LTE ready. It's actually resistant to LTE interference on the 700 megahertz band, so any LTE 4G cell phone signals are naturally rejected simply by the physical design of this antenna. Assembling the V-Zenit MIX is pretty straightforward, but in the interest of keeping this video a reasonable length, I made a separate assembly video following the step-by-step on how to put this antenna together. You can find a link for that video in the description. The actual size of this antenna, 42 inches long. The VHF reflectors at the back there are 34 inches wide. And these larger reflectors you see here in the front for the UHF stations are 20 inches high. I'd classify this as a small to medium outdoor antenna. Let's take a quick look at the anatomy of this antenna. These front directors here are for collecting the UHF TV signals on channels 14 to 36. These rear reflectors here, these taller reflectors, are for reflecting those UHF signals back to the active bow tie elements here that take care of your UHF stations. And on the VHF side, these long dipole elements collect channels 7 through 13 on the high VHF, helped by these long back reflectors that bounce the signal back to these dipoles. The build quality of this antenna is very good. All of the aluminum parts are nicely machined. The elements are integrated into the boom as opposed to being simply screwed to the top or bottom. The plastic parts are all nicely finished. High impact ABS plastic, should last a long time in the elements. And even the brackets and clamp system appear to be very robust. A nicely made antenna overall. The V-Zenit MIX is a passive TV antenna offered by Televes. Many of their other models feature built-in preamps. That's not the case with this one. However, there's nothing stopping you from adding an external preamp if you need. Another interesting feature of this antenna has to do with these front directors. Often this antenna is pictured with these directors open in a V formation. I've seen it on websites, other YouTube videos as well, but in reality, if you're installing this antenna anywhere in North America, you want to have these directors closed, and there's a reason for that. Televes has this feature called channel selection geometry, and opening or closing these directors actually changes the frequency response of this antenna on the upper UHF band. In North America, it's best to keep those directors in the closed position because they will narrow the frequency response of the antenna, filtering out all frequencies above RF channel 58, where all of those frequencies are exclusively used for cell phone signals nowadays, in particular LTE and 4G. Simply put, if you're installing this TV antenna anywhere in North America, it's really best to have these front directors set in a closed position like you see here. And what that does is gives this antenna the best overall frequency response for the North American TV market. It helps to create a buffer between over-the-air TV frequencies and any nearby LTE 4G cell phone frequencies that might interfere with your TV signal. So that means that the V-Zenit MIX will take care of LTE 4G cell phone frequencies that are broadcasting on the 700 megahertz band all on its own. However, if you have 5G service nearby, that broadcasts on the 600 megahertz band, so it may still be necessary to install an inline 5G filter with your TV antenna if you're still experiencing any cell phone interference on your TV signals. The adjustment of these directors is made during the assembly process. If you want more information on that, I go through that in detail in my assembly video, link in the description. I mentioned earlier this antenna is fully shielded. Here's what I'm talking about. I just slipped the main active element off the antenna for a moment here. On the very top here is a little tiny metal tooth or barb that bites into the main boom of the antenna when the active element is installed. And what that does is ensures continuity between the coax cable, the metal boom of the antenna, and the mast clamp system and mast. So while that ensures full shielding from your coax cable through the boom to the mast clamp and finally to your mast, don't forget you still have to ground your TV antenna mast properly. To test out the Televes V-Zenit MIX, I placed it on a mast 17 feet in the air, pointed in the direction of my local broadcast towers. I'm about 7 miles from the broadcast signal, and all the stations in this area transmit on the VHF band. Let's see how these signals do. Well, a nice surprise with these signal strength readings. Low VHF channel 2 CKPR coming in with a very good signal strength in the low to mid 60s, and I'm impressed by that because this antenna has very short VHF elements. It's really only built for channels 7 to 36, but it's doing a great job pulling in low VHF channel 2. Same thing with low VHF channel 4 CHFD, a respectable signal in the high 50s to low 60s, and TVO channel 9 coming in with a signal strength anywhere from the low 80s to the low 90s. Very strong signal, right in the wheelhouse of this antenna. But as you can see on the screen, TVO is no longer offering electronic program guide information on its broadcast signal. All right, so overall, the Televes V-Zenit MIX is a very well-constructed TV antenna with lots of good features you don't find on other antenna brands. This antenna would definitely be up for the task of receiving broadcast signals anywhere up to 50 miles from the broadcast tower. And even though I can only test it here on the VHF band, you can see what a great job it does, especially on the high VHF band. A very strong signal there on channel 9. It even picked up the low VHF stations. So if you have a couple of those in your area, then it will probably pick those up too if you're close enough to the broadcast towers. Unfortunately, I cannot verify its performance on the UHF band. However, a quick look at any antenna group online or other YouTube videos shows what a fantastic performer this antenna has proven to be on the UHF TV band, which is realistically where most broadcast TV channels reside nowadays. The V-Zenit MIX would be a great antenna for anyone living within a city or suburban area, and maybe if you're just a little further out there, like I said, about 50 miles, I would say would be a good limit for this antenna. This one might be one to look at if you're looking for an antenna that is smaller in size but big on performance.